Well, hello everyone. It's time for another Ru and Stu in the shed. And so what's happening this week, Ruth?
Hi everyone, we've got Andrew Persson here. Hi Andrew.
Hello there, neighbour.
Hi, yeah. I wanted to ask you, where did you grow up? I don't know where you grew up. I don't know if it was Oxford or...
You don't know where I came from? Well, I grew up in North London. We said, it was in Enfield, although actually we often said we were at Oakwood, which was almost at the end of the Piccadilly line. We felt we were in London, but at the top of our estate there were fields and farms and Hertfordshire.
Wow.
So right on the north edge of London.
I know that my uncle lived there in Enfield, so yeah.
Right, yes, and I actually went to school in Hampstead, so I went across London by tube every day.
Wow.
That's a bit posh, going to Hampstead.
Yeah, I'm afraid it was a little bit. That I believe that somehow God had a reason for that and sent me there. But I went every day. I wasn't in a boarding school or anything like that.
And so how did you come to faith?
Well, I came from a Christian family, and my parents had been active in the church, and my father always was. He was in work with the Boys Brigade and so on. That's what I remember growing up. And I went to Sunday school and so on, and youth group at the church, and sometimes went to the church services. And so it was a Christian atmosphere, and I remember at some point in my probably early teens, I would try praying every night, and I tried reading the Bible a little bit, and so on, and eventually coming to the point where I sort of said to God, well, I keep on trying to be a Christian, but it doesn't really work out, God, will you take me as I am, sort of thing. I think that's what the Bible is saying, and that I don't have to earn the right to be a Christian by being good and going to church and reading the Bible and doing things. And here I am, Lord. Please take over. And I think that was it.
Wow. So how did you come to be in Oxford? Did you go to uni or
Yes, but that's not how I came to be here now. I did manage to get into Oxford as a student, and again, I really felt that was God's plan for me. I mean, no one in my family had ever been to university or anything like that before, and here I was. I got into Oxford. Wow. So that was a very formative experience, not only the learning, but I think being part of the OIQ, the Christian Union in the university, was a tremendous part of building me up as a Christian.
Yeah.
So actually, that was my first experience of Oxford. Then my sister married a fellow from our home church who was studying at Oxford just as I left, and he stayed on in Oxford to do research work and so on. And eventually, when my father died in North London, my mother moved to Oxford to be near to my sister, because by that time I was married to Janet and we were working in Africa. And so, my sister was here in Oxford. It made sense for her to be here. And eventually, in 2004, obviously much later, we felt that Mum needed someone to be looking after her. I think Mum was very well known in KBC at the time, and we were sort of known a bit in KBC through her because she made a very good publicity agent. And but we felt we ought to come and look after her in 2004. So that's why we moved in here with her, and she passed away in 2009.
Right.
And we're still here.
So how did you meet Janet?
Yes, interesting. The Lord led me into joining Wycliffe Bible translators to work overseas in Bible translation ministry. And when I was starting work with them, I was working in their office, which was near Stokenchurch at the time. And one summer when we were having our main training courses, when we had over 300 people on the site being trained and doing the training and so on, I was one of the administrators. And well, we had staff who came, Wycliffe missionaries who came home from overseas. Janet was one of them. I'd been told to be very, very polite to the single lady missionaries who came home from overseas and to make sure they had the best rooms. And this lady called Janet turned up at my desk and said, "Where am I staying?" And I said, "Oh, yes, we have a single room for you." And she said, "Oh dear, you mean we're not all together in dormitories anymore?" Oh, and I thought, you can't please some people. That was the first time I met Janet. It improved after that.
Are you doing any better now at pleasing her?
Sorry?
Are you doing any better now at pleasing her?
I don't know. She's gone away for the week, so make what you will of that.
So had you been on missions before you were married, or did you start sort of doing that when you were married?
No, I hadn't been overseas. I mean, nowadays it's very common for people to go, overseas for a few months or 6 months or a year and come back and then prepare and go overseas again. But in my case, no, I felt the Lord calling me to overseas missionary work. Our church had several overseas missionaries, and whenever they came home, I was fascinated by the stories they told, and just somehow felt that's me. Yeah. Except that they were all doctors and teachers and things, and I was sure I was not supposed to be a doctor or a teacher. So I had no idea until I heard about Wycliffe Bible translators and the work of translating the Bible into the languages of people who can't read it at the moment. And so when I was at university, I was studying languages. When I left, I went to Bible college and trained, and then I joined Wycliffe before I had managed to get abroad. And right. That's what I did. And then, at that point, we did go abroad. We first went to Ghana for 2 years and then ended up in Sudan.
Right. So you started in Ghana, then you went to Sudan.
Yes.
Andrew, could you just tell us reasonably briefly, just how on earth do you start with a group of people whose language has never been written down?
All right. You say reasonably briefly, yes. You must know me somehow. Yes, well, basically, you start by, you hope that there's someone who speaks a language in common with you, which there was in Ghana and South Sudan. There were people who knew a little bit of English, or in South Sudan, a little bit of Arabic. And so you sort of learn how to say hello and how are you and what's that? Yeah, and the hope they give you the right word for the thing, and then you write it down using phonetic script, which we've learned as part of our training. And pardon me. Then you start running and you say, "What am I doing?" And they will say, "You're running," and so you try and repeat it and write it down. And that's where you start. You start with a special phonetic alphabet which puts down every sound. Then you have to go into other stages of analysis to work out which sounds are relevant, and you come up with an alphabet. So I hope that's that was reasonably short, I hope, and I hope that's partly comprehensible.
But I mean, I am right, just to check that I'm understanding this. I mean, one thinks of translating the Bible, but actually you often have to start by actually getting the language down on paper for the first time.
That's exactly it. Yes, most of the languages in the world that almost all of them that don't yet have a Bible translated into them are also languages which have never ever been written down by anyone. And that, of course, is why the people who speak those languages are so disadvantaged. To learn to read, to go to school, they've got to start in another language. And like sending all our kids to school and expecting them to learn to read in German to start off with. So you've got to start with that in most cases, and that was certainly what we were involved in. And so it took several years. I mean, when we first settled in the Jurmodo village in South Sudan, there was a church there. There were Christians who wanted the Bible. And after 3 weeks, they were coming on to our door and saying, well, how much of the Bible have you translated so far?
No.
And we think, we might start, we in fact didn't start translating for about 2 years. And even then it required us to find a local person who could work with us as a translator, and we were supervising him.
Fascinating.
Yeah. One of our questions we always ask is about how you found lockdown.
Yes, well, I mean, in some ways, yes, it has been, you know, rather very dispiriting and so on, because we're used to you know, mixing with people and being at church and you know, chattering away like this and so on, and that, you know, I found difficult to be cut off and just you know, stuck in a routine and not meeting people and not going anywhere. On the other hand, Janet and I, all our lives, working lives together, we've been working from home, basically. Wherever we've been. We lived in a village in South Sudan and were learning the language. We were at home. Our office was up at one end of the little tin house we lived in. And even later on, you know, when we were working in a city or something, our office was at home and we would go and meet with local people to do the work that we were doing. So we've been used to working from home and used to both of us working together.
Yeah. Sort
of thing. So, you know, being our own company and bouncing ideas off each other all the time. So that side of it we were used to.
Yeah.
But the sort of isolation side of it, no.
Yeah. And if you could choose two people who could have shared your lockdown, did you have a think about who you would choose?
Yes, of course. I had a thought about this. Yes, I thought I'm not going to be caught with that question. On me. So, excuse me. Yeah. I think the first one would have to be St. Paul. Because having been involved in translating all his letters and in helping people from a multitude of languages to translate, you know, his letters into their languages, and trying to answer all their questions and, you know, what does this mean and what's he referring to there and why did he say that? Well, it would be really nice to have him there and be able to say, look here, what was that all about? And you really, what were you talking about in 2 Corinthians? So, yeah, he will be number one. And the other person, I hope I'm not being too partisan here, but would be John Wycliffe, who was the first person to have the idea really and put it into practice of translating the Bible into English.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't exactly a Bible translator himself. He was a theology lecturer at Oxford University and also involved, he was a sort of top diplomat of the age and not exactly a politician, but perhaps we would say a top civil servant. But he had this idea that the scripture was God's word for everyone, and everyone should have the chance to read it in a language which they understood.
Yeah.
And in fact, he didn't actually do much of the translation himself. He got other people to do it and work under him and fought and carry it on after he died. But I'd really love to have him and say, now look, do you know what that all led to? You know, and look what's happened because of you pioneered this idea and so on. Look what happened to the church and the Reformation, and now we've got Bible translation going on all around the world, and people in almost every language now are getting the chance to read God's word in their own language, and it'd be nice to have a chat with him about that.
Yeah. They're great.
I mean, Andrew, I'm wondering if the reason that heaven will last for eternity is so that you've time to ask Paul all your questions.
No, well, it may well be, yes. Especially if someone starts asking me questions as well, it could go on forever, as I say.
And talking about, have you got a favourite Bible verse?
Oh, yes, that was one I have a favourite Bible. The trouble was I could never remember what the reference was. I'm hopeless with Bible references, but I did look it up. And if you can remember what Luke 17 verse 10 says, then you can have a gold star or something. But actually, this is my sort of theme verse. Jesus is speaking, and he says to his disciples, "When you have done all you have been told to do, say, we are just ordinary servants. We have only done our duty."
I like that.
So there.
That's a great verse. That is a great verse.
Yeah,
And
that's Luke 17 verse 10. I think I just about remembered it now.
Good.
hopefully, yeah, that's a great verse. I've written it down.
Good. Yeah, it can come up useful when people come up to say, "Oh, you were a missionary, how wonderful!"
And Andrew, have you got any passions? You know, we often ask people, what do you like to do when you're,
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. What are my passions? I don't know. I'm not. Well, I had hobbies when I was young, but they went out the window, sort of thing. And I'm afraid, Stuart, I'm not sporty or interested in sport. So I don't know.
I bet you love to read.
Well, yes, I suppose you could say I like to read very much, yes, and all sorts of things. And watching documentaries on the television and so on, those sort of things. I say I don't read any fiction, but I do occasionally read something. But mainly it's sort of non-fiction, documentary type things. That's interesting to me.
What sort of documentaries do you like?
Well, pretty well anything that's factual and about an area that I don't know anything about. And it's surprising how much you can learn on the television, from that, and pick up from library books and whatever. And even when I pick up, the newspaper and hey, look what's happening here. Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so on. So I suppose I'm inquisitive.
Yes.
I don't know if inquisitiveness is our passion, but
I think it is. I definitely think it is.
I know it did something for someone's cat, but
yeah.
Well, we still have him here. Is that time or?
I think we could. Yes, I think we could go on to.
Oh, we come to the Cromwellian time.
Cromwellian, here he is. He hasn't gone yet, so he's still here.
Oh dear.
Say hello.
Hello, Cromwell. Do you recognise me? Yes, I'm down the road.
Yeah, he's been to your door a few times, hasn't he?
Yes.
He likes to
go
call.
for it, Cromwell.
So Cromwell's question is cats or dogs?
Yes, Cromwell. Well, I'm sorry, Cromwell, but our family have never had dogs. I'm not in particular against dogs, but well, in fact, I don't have anything against dogs at all. but we have twice in our history had a cat. Not always because we wanted one, but sometimes because it just landed on us. So I would probably have to say I get on a bit better with cats, but I'm not a terribly animal sort of person. In fact, as a teenager, I was renowned in our youth group for referring to every animal that I ever saw as a pussy. But there you are.
Well, right.
I think I was trying to simplify the English language at the time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Would make the translations easier.
Yes, it could do. Yes, except that
Yeah.
I believe someone's already done one in English.
Yeah. And Noah took two pussies and two pussies and two pussies into the ark. I mean, that kind of
Yes, quite.
Anyway, Andrew, thank you so much for sharing a bit about your life. That was really interesting. And just keep watching, and there will be another one quite soon. Thank you very much.